From the studios, it's Euroyard. We're back because I want to talk about the odds today. So we're not telling anyone to go gamble. We're not telling anyone to do anything like that. But I know that around this time of year, once we get into national final season and we start progressing in towards the spring, people start paying attention to odds, whether it's for the Eurovision Song Contest or for the national finals that are taking place. And I'm just here to warn you that those odds aren't always right. So what I wanted to do today, because I think sometimes maybe we get, well, at least certain people amongst us, get a little too wrapped up in what the odds say is going to happen in these competitions. I want to take a few minutes today to talk about some recent examples of when the odds for a song contest or even for the Eurovision Song Contest were wrong. And I did curate this list a little bit, but it might be more than you think. So let's start with a really recent example. As of the time we did this video, in March 2026, Norway, Melody Grand Prix 2026. So Jonas Love, who won Melody Grand Prix, when the voting closed, he was at 7% in the odds, fourth place. So things switched around a little bit between Emma, Northern Lights, and Alexander Rybak's song Rise. And then you had Milo in third. Jonas was in fourth, but he's the one who won. So that was a pretty sizable miss by the bettors and the books. But that wasn't the only one in 2026, as you will soon see. So when you talk about the other Melody Grand Prix, the one in Denmark, DMGP, so Søren Torpegaard, who ended up winning that contest, was at 13%, had a 13% chance of winning, according to the betting odds, or third place. And Sissel, who had represented Denmark in 2025, was considered a heavy favorite to go back to Eurovision, but she didn't win, Søren did. So there's another miss for you. Going back now to 2025, some of the examples that we have. So the Eurovision Song Contest itself. Sweden, when the voting closed, Sweden was at a 50% chance to win. Now, Austria, the eventual winner, they were in second, but they were far behind Sweden. Only a 21% chance of winning. Sweden, of course, didn't win with that great song, Barabada Bastu, but I don't think anyone can really be upset that a great guy like JJ ended up winning that contest. Now, we just talked about Sweden and how when the voting ended last May, that they were the favorites to win Eurovision. Well, they weren't even the favorites to win their own national song contest back in Sweden, Melodifestivalen, or Melfest, as we call it, because Måns Zelmerlöw was the heavy favorite. He, of course, is a former Eurovision winner from 2015. He took part in Melfest in 2025, and he had a 58% chance of winning that final on the day that it happened. Kai was in second at 21%. Kai, of course, ended up winning, and as somebody who watched that Melfest final live, I don't think I can express to you properly in words just how big of an upset that was. There were people that thought it could happen, but I don't think anybody actually believed that it would happen. And then it did happen for a guy like Måns, who was at the time a popular former Eurovision winner, to lose that contest. Really, really striking. But that wasn't the only one in 2025, as you'll see. There were a few more that we'll tell you about. In Croatia at Dora in 2025, Marko Božňák was only at 14% odds of winning that contest in third place. The song My Magazine was expected to win that one. But there was a pretty big upset also in Ireland when Ireland participated at Eurosong 2025, the late show that they do there. So this was a pretty sizable upset here too. So Bobby Arlo, her song Power Play, that was at a 56% chance to win Going into that contest, Emmy was in second, but well behind at 15%. Of course, Emmy and her song Like a Party ended up winning. So then moving back to 2024, you may remember this one very well. So Baby Lasagna in 2024 at the Eurovision Song Contest, when the voting closed, was at a 52% chance to win. Switzerland and Nemo, third in the odds, but only had a 15% chance of winning. Of course, Nemo went on to win. Baby Lasagna came in second. So in the last two Eurovision Song Contests, the heavy favorite, after all of the songs were performed, did not end up winning. So now, of course, if you go back to 2023, everyone was saying all along it was going to be Loreen that won, and that's exactly what happened. But the last two, the odds were wrong. Speaking of 2024, there were a few high-profile misses by the betting odds, and one of the big ones was in Iceland at Söngvakeppnin, where Hera Björk, who was in fourth place going into that big finale in the odds at 10%, she was well behind several of the other songs. She came out of nowhere and won that national final, went back to Eurovision. Of course, she had represented Iceland back in 2010 with a great song called Je ne sais quoi. I don't think anyone really expected her to win this one. I'm not even sure she expected to win this one, but she did. So that was a huge miss. As was Germany 2024. Some people forget about this final, Das Deutsche Finale in 2024. The song by Riek, Oh Boy, that was a massive favorite to win this contest. Isaac, who ended up winning, was in fourth place in the odds, but only had a 5% chance of winning. So in terms of percentages, that's probably the biggest upset that you're going to see here. But that's what happened. And the last one we're going to talk about was UMK 2024. It was a good show. I remember watching it. So you may remember that Windows 95 Man won that contest. But when the contest got underway, he was at 10% in the odds. Third place. Sara Sipala was a heavy favorite. I think she was at 60% to win that contest, and she didn't win. So what's all of this to say? The odds, I would say, and I don't have the data in front of me, but if you were to go through the odds from the last couple of years, whether from Eurovision or some of the song contests, I think you would find that the odds probably get it right the majority of the time. With that said, there are definitely some big misses that you see. I would say occasionally there will be a big miss, as we've seen. Maybe like once or twice a year, there will be a big miss. All that aside, even when the odds miss, like for example, that UMK that I showed you, where Sara Sipala was at about a 60% chance of winning and she didn't win. That does happen, but Windows 95 Man was in third. Søren Torpegaard was in third. JJ was in second. Nemo was in third. Even though sometimes the percentage chances of winning are really off, the person or the act that does end up winning usually is somewhere in the top 3 or top 4. And if you go back historically through Eurovision, I think that off the top of my head, the biggest odds miss that I can remember in recent times was probably 2014 Eurovision with Conchita Wurst winning. Aram from Armenia was considered the favorite. Conchita wasn't even in the top 10 in the odds going into that contest. So that was really a stunner. That doesn't happen quite so often. And sometimes the odds do get it wrong. Sometimes the percentages are really off. But usually the person or the people who do win are close, at least in terms of their placement, if not the percentages. So as we move through national final season to Eurovision and then more national final seasons down the road, just remember The odds are a fun thing to track, but they're not everything, and they might not call it right. For more Euroyard, like and subscribe. Follow us on social media. We'll see you soon.